Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right. Thank you, Mr. Producer. Guys, it is a show that you love. Robert L. Herbage. Hanging with Herbage. That's what we're doing for the next show right here. So sometimes you hear him on the radio. Today I'm lucky enough to see Mr. Herbage right next to me. Hey, Mr. Herbage, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. I just want to actually let me have you do it this time. Can you kind of introduce yourself to the audience in case people haven't heard your show before on Hanging with Herbage?
Okay. My name is Robert Herbage, and I'm the principal architect at Hospitality Design Group. We're based in San Antonio, Texas, and the company specializes in restaurant design. So we handle everything from architecture, interior design to the kitchen design or food service design. And we run it through construction and all the way through implementation when it opens.
Nice. Thank you for that. Mr. Herbage has amazing stories. And first of all, I just want to make a comment about that beautiful car he has in the back there. That is a Corvette built in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It's yellow, which is pretty cool because that's the only one I've seen. I've seen a '69 Stingray that was yellow.
Oh, yeah.
My ex used to drive that around. Can you picture a really hot girl driving something like that? You
Have
can
you
fall in
ever
love.
seen it? Have you ever seen an ugly woman in a Corvette?
No.
No.
Well, what? No, of course not. What year is that, Mr. Herbage?
That's a 2007.
So they didn't do much to the body style, right?
Well, the one prior to that was very round. They rounded everything up. I had a what they call a C4, which was an 87 convertible, which had more of a flat tail and it had kind of a sharp pointy nose on it. But then they went to the next version, which is the C5 is what they call it. It's more rounded, a more rounded nose. It had oval tail lights. The 87 had round tail lights. The 2007, my 2007, which is a C6, has the round tail lights. And now they've gone to the more rectangular tail lights, more akin to like the Camaro and stuff like that on the newer vets.
On the newer vets, is the gas still in the back on top in between the lights, or do they move that kind of like normal? They put it on the side.
Well, my 2007 was on the tail, was up
Yeah.
above on the
Okay.
deck, not 2007. On my 87, it was, and then they moved it to the side, and I think it's still on the side, even on the mid-engine Corvette, the new one.
So it's got how many horse? And this is my last question. I don't want to because we got so many things to get to here. But how many horse does a typical Corvette have these days?
It's ranging anywhere from 4 to 500. The new Z06 is going to be somewhere around 6 or 700. Mine has got 400, but compare that to the 87, which had 290.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
it's a big difference.
I bet. I bet. Well, um, Hanging with Herbage is such an interesting show because Robert has done so many different projects. You've probably been in one of the restaurants that he worked on, and they tell him what they need yesterday, and he has to find. You're half magician basically. You have to make something happen. Where do you ever doubt yourself, saying, "I can't make that happen in a week"?
There's a point where you get to that point, but you're constantly trying to figure out a way to pull a rabbit out of a hat. Um, we have a project going right now where they want to get everything open, but then the owner, we're going to remodel an existing restaurant, but it's only going to be shut down for a short period of time. We've got to take the existing exhaust hoods out, take the walk-in cooler out, put all new exhaust hoods and fans and new walk-in cooler. But then the owner threw a kind of just a subtle little rink at us yesterday in the meeting was, oh, by the way, we're going to be stripping the walls of the tile in the kitchen and we're going to refinish the walls in the tile. Oh, and by the way, we're going to redo the floor tile. You
Oh,
know,
by the way, let me tell you something.
yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, no problem. But then we're doing the math, and it's like, okay, I've been around it when they're laying down the floor tile.
Oh my
The poor
God.
tile guy doesn't want anybody anywhere near it walking it. And you have fleets of tradesmen trying to get into that kitchen zone to do the stuff above the ceiling, and they can't. And then you got
Mm.
the kitchen equipment stacking up out there. Everybody's waiting for the grout, not the grout, but basically the mortar to set. And then you got to wait for him to grout it. And then he has to go and he has to seal it. And then you can get in there and start doing your work. But it could take a couple weeks for all that kind of stuff to transpire as long as there's no hiccups.
Yeah,
You know,
isn't there a time where it's got to sit, nobody can go on it?
that's it. You can't walk on the stuff. And
Yeah.
I've done it where we even decided to do an epoxy grout, which was even worse. It was a good idea on my part, but it turned out to be a nightmare because they were always blasting out the grout. So we decided to go with an epoxy. Well, that stuff is like, it's like pouring bubble gum into little grooves, and they're doing it in small sections for the stuff to set
Oh
up.
man.
And it's like, why did I even think of this? This was not a good idea. So yeah,
Well, one thing I always wanted to ask you, we touched on it maybe once before, but I want to know, how do you stay current? How do you know what trends are going in the restaurant business, because they change so often. I didn't know I'd be going in two lanes of traffic to get a McDonald's hamburger now.
right.
They all have two different things. And then who goes first? That I'm always kind of worried about that. Or if I'm done with my order first, do I zip in front of the guy who's next to me? I don't know. So basically, who cares about my McDonald's habits? But how do you stay current and ahead of the trends?
I end up getting, well, I usually get about 200 emails a day from all kinds of different uh, trade magazines having to do with restaurants and restaurant design. So if I have the time, either I get rid of all of the fodder out there and then I get through to the stuff that's important, and I'll look at the articles. You're hitting on one of them, that branched across my desk today, which
Hmm.
had to do with drive-through lanes. And I was reading the statistics, and it was done from a motions design expert, and he was looking at it as far as, okay, here's where the traditional things, like you're in a McDonald's situation, you have one menu board, everybody's kind of stacked up, they might have a little timer out there, and everybody is trying to get those things through the drive through lane within a certain time period, maybe 3 minutes, maybe five at the most, and they're trying to do that. Well, he looked at it and said, okay, if you do that, you're only going to basically be able to do maybe 20 cars per hour. And the goal should be like 120 cars per hour.
Really?
Yes. And it's like, so and he went through this whole piece, and I've been looking at it. And when they put the timers up, he said, what happens is everybody is working towards the timer, not towards speed of sales. So you might have one menu item or one order that might take 1 minute, but well, I've got 5 minutes to produce that order.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And as long as they're evenly going through all in the same boat. But there's so many things that have changed out there now, where they have people who have pads.
Yeah, what?
Little
That's a new one too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going out there and they're basically taking the order and making sure it's all taken care of. In some cases, they'll even do the credit cards. Cash is basically a joke anymore. I had one client said, we don't deal in cash anymore. Everything is on the card. So it's like, okay, well, we've always had a cash register. It's one station. It's only in the bar is where you need the cash. But otherwise, everything else is all on credit cards. And so he's talking in this article about how you're basically trying to get the order, but then the he said the menu board is basically the choke point in the whole design. So if you have two lanes and two dedicated boards, you're kind of increasing it there. But the biggest problem that he's outlining is the fact that you have to basically be able to produce so much food in a short period of time. And if you are, and he identified two different groups. One of them is a cook to order. So if you're going to a Mexican restaurant and they're making an enchilada plate and they're putting all this stuff together and they're cooking it, that takes more time. If you're going to Chick-fil-A, or if you remember Kentucky Fried Chicken, all that stuff was made in bulk and held, and they were just assembling it and packaging it, and out the window it went.
Right.
And so that's a whole different animal.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just there's all, I'm still just getting through and highlighting everything.
but
It's like, oh my God.
but you make some great points, and I'm understanding it more. But I think the best part of the two lane thing, which you bringing up, everything from someone who knows the business. Now you got a whole set of new problems. But when I drive by, I don't see a line.
No.
And sometimes that will make people, the line's too long. I'm not going to go.
And that's on purpose.
Right, right.
It's to get you to make the commitment from the street. Oh, there's nobody in the line. Zip in. Oh my God, there's 20 people in front of me.
So that's the thing, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to get them committing as quickly as you can, and then you get them committed so much. But then I was reading in the article where a lot of people will just blow it off. I can't sit out here for a long period of time and wait to get my order in and then pick up my order. I got to get to work.
Right.
And so they're bypassing and just saying, screw it, and just moving on down the road.
I don't understand, why don't people go in anymore? It's usually when
Um,
you go in, there's usually no one there.
Yeah. And in fact, I went into a McDonald's here locally, and there were people standing in line to get to the cash register person. And then right next to them was a self kiosk thing. Yeah. I just went up to there, ordered everything, paid with my credit card, and just stood and wait, and gave me the little ticket. It came out faster, and then people were still standing in line.
Yeah, it's a different day. I mean, now I see at even at delis and stuff like that, people will somehow text in their order or something like that, and it's just sitting there waiting for them. So how does that, with all that happening in your business? I mean, you have to know so many things, and now you got all this change on top of it. How have you been able to deal?
You end up just sitting there and just putting in the file cabinet in the back of your brain, and then all of a sudden it'll pop up. We had the conversation about how do we expedite if we don't have the capability to do the pads. How do you, and you have a choke point where you have one cashier point, um, looking at other things. You go to, I don't know if they have Sonic in New York, but
Yep.
Sonic here, you can pay at the menu board when you pull into the drive-through thing. It's
Okay.
like, okay, why can't I do that at the menu board on the drive-through lane? If it's all card, just zip, zip, it's done.
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
And we threw that out the customer, and they said, well, problem is the point of sales system isn't that sophisticated to handle that yet. It's like, oh, okay. So we got to wait for their technology, because they all depend upon the POS system. So they're got to depend on that, and it's not hooked up that way yet.
What was
So
it what you mentioned before about, when the person comes out, they have the headphones on, they're taking your order, and at times they're even taking your card. What was behind that? What's the speed? Is it speed? Is it what's the advantages of that?
well, they're bypassing the order board, which is, you're sitting there and you could be a 10 car stack, and you could be back at car number 10. Well, that person goes over there, she takes the order. You probably already know what the hell you want, so you're going to go and give her order, and she's going to take your cash. Well, that immediately puts you at the front of the food queue inside the restaurant. And otherwise you're having to wade your way up to the menu board to place that order. And then there's usually only about 4 cars between the pickup window and the order
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so, the quicker, according to this article, the more that you can speed that up, you're producing a lot more cars through the lane. And I mean, he's talking in some cases 180 cars per hour. That is a
Wow.
ton of people.
That's a lot of business, man.
It
Jeez.
is.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Producer, you told me that you wanted to break in with a question
Yes,
or
we
something.
have some instant feedback. We have Virginia from Arizona. I apologize. For people in the workforce, how do you come off stern without being arrogant?
Ugh.
I love that.
Yeah.
uh,
That's a tough one. I'm still working. I'm still
I'm still
working on
working on it.
that. You have to kind of be. Okay. If you've watched the movie Moneyball, there's a piece in that movie to where it's like rip the Band-Aid off, and the guy didn't want to go fire one of the ball players, and he was one of the lesser people below Brad Pitt, who was the head of the ball team, and he went, no, the guy's a professional. Just go in and rip the Band-Aid off. Just fire him. He'll deal. He'll be upset, but he'll move on. And I started putting that into play, and it eliminates all of the second guessing and all this stuff and trying to soft pedal and all that stuff, and you end up washing down your message. But if you just basically rip the band-aid off and just have a direct message, it seems to work a lot clearer.
Hmm.
And not try to be confrontational about it. That's, you don't want to get into a match
Right,
of
right.
wits. It's not worth it.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like you don't have enough to do.
Yeah.
Mr. Producer, what do we have time for one more?
Yes,
Okay.
we have a couple more, so I'll do those.
Oh, good.
We have Jamie from Louisiana. They go, because of COVID, I've noticed that I've been eating more fast food. Has there been an increase in fast food restaurants because of COVID?
Oh yeah, big sales bump. Um, there's a lot more. Well, because of the DoorDash increase
That's
and all
yeah.
that kind of stuff, which I guess now DoorDash. I just read an article where DoorDash is going to be delivering alcohol in some states,
Oh no.
so you'll be able to get your 6 pack at home. Um, but it's yeah, there's a big increase in sales over. I mean, it was like 30% sales or something like that over the
Yeah.
previous year.
So it's oh, you're talking about the orders, but and with the fact that DoorDash, Uber Eats, and then Grubhub,
Right.
they hammer you on all these different fees. If you were going to go to the restaurant, you'd probably be paying half.
Yeah.
On like a $12 meal. I think on one of these things you're paying 25, but people are doing it. Why?
To me, it's just it's. I've already fought the battle to get home. I'm just going to order it. I'm going to let that poor schlub there, and I'll give him whatever it's going to be. I don't just don't want to get out there and
Right.
fight the wave again.
Uh-huh.
But if I'm going, on the way to work and getting a coffee or a breakfast taco or something like that, yeah, that's okay. But I finally I'm done with my day. Bring
Yeah,
it to
I'm
me.
here. No, I'm not going back out again. I
I ain't
got it.
going back out.
Oh, 100%. Mr. Producer, what you got?
We have Oscar from South Dakota. He goes, can you tell us what you've found to be obsolete in restaurants and what should restaurant owners not do?
Hmm. Good question, Oscar.
Um, what should they not do? Basically let their spaces get very worn out. Um, they get into a groove to where they don't want to spend the money because they're locked in. They're very small profits anyway. And so they'll let the place start looking very old very fast. And it used to be that they would rehab, paint, spruce up, new carpets, all that kind of stuff every 5 years. And then it's kind of stretched out over the time to where it's probably in some places 10 to 15 or more. And you walk in and the place hasn't changed in 20 years. and it hasn't even had a coat of paint, or things are falling down the ceiling. That's what they shoot themselves in the foot. They don't look from the customer side into the restaurant. They look from inside the kitchen out, and they need to get out and look around, see what the public sees when they walk in the restaurant. And a lot of it is pretty sad. And that's really what they need to be doing. They need to spend a little money, even if you get a bucket of paint and have your kids help you. At least it'll look a lot better than just leaving it dirty and dingy.
Gotcha. Mr. Producer,
Yes, we
take
have.
us on this one? Okay.
Yeah, this is the last question, and then we're gonna have to wrap up. But we have Joe from Vermont. Do you have free consultations?
Yes. Anybody who wants to give me a holler or call me on my number, 210-831-3580. I'll be glad to talk to them and see if I can point them in the right direction.
Any website you want to give out, or anything you want to leave us with? Hanging
Well,
with Herbage?
Yeah, the website is hospitalitydesignGroup.com. And it has all of our projects on there. It has our contacts, the teams, and it has ways to get a hold of us either by email or by direct contact.
Awesome. I love your show. Thanks
Me
so much for
too.
everything, and thanks for the backdrop today. Which like, guys, that's Robert L. Herbage, and you have been watching Hanging with Herbage. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.